Hello and welcome to Eco Girl in a Modern World. My name is Shelley and my channel is dedicated to talking about ways to be more environmentally friendly in a modern context. Since we had talked about fall fashion recently, I decided to go ahead and talk about another subject that's really important to fashion and when you are purchasing clothes, which is alterations. So alterations, of course, are very important because on this channel and in general, I always encouraged that you, one of the eco rules that you follow is to wear what you have, right? Really use it up and make it last. And one of the eco rules talks about the 30 wear rule, which is where you buy high quality items that you really want to wear and that you wear it more than 30 times. It's a common statistic that most Americans wear their clothes about an average of 7 times, and then in the last decade, it's been a lot less than that since 2020, with the rise of Instagram culture. Not to knock Instagram, but you wear the outfit once for a picture and then you don't wear it again. Either that or you keep the tags on it and return it. So a lot of times we don't wear our clothes a whole lot. So when you talk about alterations, you really does pertain to those garments that you own and that you love and that you take care of. And one of the mainstays, one of the staples of wearing it a lot is making sure that it fits you. And I think that that's kind of a dying art because something that fits you well is something that's tailored to you. So that's what we're going to talk about today. And we're going to kind of break it into three areas. Alterations can be several different things, but basically most of the time alteration applies to clothing. It applies to shoes that we'll talk about in a minute, and it can talk about handbags, right? And I am going to do one little add-on where I'm going to be talking about jewelry as well. So we're going to cover all of that hopefully in a very brief video. But again, to jump right in, one of the main things about clothing that you can talk about, so clothing is the number one thing that you can have tailored. If you buy a quality pair of jeans, you could easily spend over $100 and sometimes over $300 on a good pair of jeans. And a good pair of jeans, a good pair of trousers, a good jacket, or a good blouse can last you a very, very long time. But of course, that is contingent on the fact of it fitting well and of being of high quality. So a lot of times when you find something that's a good staple piece, you want to make sure that it fits you. So clothing is the first step. And when in that example of jeans, jeans can get a little tricky because again, there is an overproduction of clothing. Anything we produce in the United States alone, there's way too many pieces of clothing made, and again, it's usually of pretty poor quality, especially if you buy it from fast fashion. And not to completely knock it, fast fashion can sometimes produce some quality pieces, but unfortunately on the mainstay, it produces a lot of polyester and a lot of acrylic and they're caring about the speed in which something's produced, not the quality. So a lot of times, and to be honest, and the sizing of things have never been really correct anyway. Sometimes, the size around the waist or the size around the hips or the way that it drapes is just not correct. So clothing is number one way that you can tailor your clothes. And if you watch my Instagram and watch my social media channels, I found this beautiful linen dress. It's a beautiful red linen dress that has kind of this pattern to it. Very fall colors, very tomato, tan, and cream colors, great for fall. And I noticed that it fit me really, really well. Like the length of the dress was great. But what I was having problems with is that underneath the arm was coming really, really high to my underarms, and it was making me uncomfortable, right? And that's kind of the first thing you can look for when you try on a piece of clothing is, okay, is it pinching? Is it scratching? Where do I feel it, right? Because when I always say, when you find a piece of clothing that you put on and you do not want to take off because you just feel so comfortable in it right off the cuff, that's a keeper, right? And this dress was a keeper. I did actually buy it at the thrift store for like, I think $14. And it was a high-end brand, and it was 100% linen. So it was such a beautiful dress, and everything about it fit so well, except it was just really high under the arms, and I could feel it, and it was bothering me, right? So what I did is I did go ahead and I decided to take it into my tailor. Now, I have run into it where I've gone to tailors for different things. I've tried different tailors. One tailor that I go to does a really good job, but they are pretty expensive. And for this trip, I actually went to a lady that specializes in dresses. And she was actually kind of busy this time of year, because if you're watching this at the time the video posts, we're coming up on, kind of not prom season, but homecoming season, right? Everyone's back to school. So right now is kind of the 4 to 6 week mark before some major formal events are coming. And plus, when you get into the fall season, a lot of people come in, for work events and things like that. But I found a really great tailor, and it was just so nice, because it's meeting someone who knows what they're doing, like someone who knows how to sew, like actually sew a garment. That is really a dying art, right? How many times, I think we've really gotten into the culture where if something doesn't fit, we just discard it and go look on the internet for something to replace it, regardless of how well that's made, right? And we've talked before about manufacturing chains. A lot of the any fashion bought from anywhere is not produced very ethically. The materials are not produced very ethically, and you'll hear something called a supply chain. Like, where was that fabric sourced? How many times was it flown around the world? Who produced it? Were they paid for producing it? So to actually talk to someone who knows how to sew, and there's a lot of great sewing channels here on YouTube. I love watching it, even though I'm not the best seamstress. I make storage bags for my purses. That's kind of the extent of my sewing, but that's something that's kind of on my bucket list to learn how to do, is how to actually make a garment, right? And it was so nice, because I made an appointment to go in and see her, and she had me stand up, she had me change into the dress, and she put me up on the little podium, and it was so nice. She was putting pins where she needed to go, and she could actually tell there's something called a dart. It's a little angular seam of where your breasts are, in a dress. And she could even tell, in addition to, cutting out the angle, like she drew on a piece of paper what she would have to do to open the arm. And it's very complex. There's a lot of measuring in it. You're kind of measuring an oval circle, and you're taking out part of the fabric, and then you're using additional material to create a seam underneath that fabric. So it's a difficult thing. And while she was doing that, she said, well, since I'm going to be cutting out this material here, I have to readjust the dart. Let me go ahead and measure it so it fits you in the chest. And for all of this work, it cost me $30. And that is actually really good, because I've paid $60 for pants to be hemmed. Pants can be hit or miss. If it's just a straight leg, that's easier to hem, so that won't cost it much. But if it's like a bell bottom or a flare or a lot more material, that'll cost you more. But actually $30 was not bad at all. She did say, I haven't gotten the dress back yet, and I'll post an update on Instagram when I do get it back, because she needed a couple of weeks. Again, she was busy with other orders for homecoming and things like that, so that takes priority over my dress. But she was upfront about it. But that was really just a cool experience. And it's nice. And again, I mentioned in an earlier video, I want to try to make a simple sewing project. I haven't made any clothing for myself, but I was hoping to maybe make like a very simple top or a simple skirt. I wanted to do that net overlay skirt idea. So I have a few sewing patterns that I'm going to try, but to talk to someone who does alterations and actually does this for a living, it was very nice. And it just made me me think, okay, this, you don't find very many people who can actually have the skill to do this, right? So that was my experience with a dress, having a dress altered. In that same vein, I mentioned jeans. I did go to, I have a tailor that I go to that hems my pants, and he's a very nice guy, and he actually has, you know, when you stand on the little podium that has a three-way mirror, he has taped up a little newspaper article that shows Prince William, the Prince of Wales in England, and it showed his pants and how you know, it showed where, you know, a seam of pants should be, because seams should not be too high. It's going to look like a high water, or it shouldn't be too low either. And that's why when you go in to see somebody who is a tailor, they'll definitely, you know, have you wear the shoes that you think that you're going to wear most often. You know, if you're wearing loafers, if you're wearing sneakers, and they'll tailor it just so. And I have to admit, you know, I'm 5'2", so I run into this problem all the time. The other thing is, like, when you are buying secondhand, which is always encouraged, if you look at the inseam is from the inside of your thigh to the bottom of the jean, or the bottom of the pants. That can kind of give you an indicator, you know, like if you're shorter like me, 5'2", a 30 or 32 inch inseam would probably be good for you. If you're taller, you might want to go with like a 34 or 36, contingent on how tall you are. So sometimes you can look out for this before you buy. The other thing that I run into a lot is being too tight around the waist. I have a very small waist, but I have a big butt. And what happens is, if you don't, you can buy some high-waisted pants, but if it's not giving enough allowance in the hip area, so that's where you can look at hip measurements, waist measurements. And that's one thing that I have seen with Gen Z. They know about this stuff, with the advent of high-waisted mom jeans. You can kind of get to see what your measurements are, and everyone's body is different. We talk about that a lot on this channel. Know your body shape, right? And sometimes I've done that where I've bought a pair of jeans because they fit me around the waist, but then around the butt area, it's too tight around there. It's like it looks like you're wearing a thong, and that's not fitting you correctly either. So now I will say that if it's the what do you call it, the drop between the belly button and the crotch area, you do want to be very careful with that, because unfortunately that's not really something a tailor can alter. And if you get it too small, that might just be a loss. But anything else, like the length of the pants, or like we saw, under the arms, or maybe broadening the shoulders a little bit, there might be ways that some material can be added where you won't even see it, and again, that's just such a dying art. Another good book is that there's a book by InStyle, and right now, we were talking in the fall fashion video, the 2010s fashion trends. There was a lot of Maybelline that was popular in the 10s, so it wasn't my favorite era. But this InStyle, I've always loved InStyle magazine, and they actually had a book that talks about this, and I'll post it in below. You can buy it secondhand. You could probably really borrow it from the library. It was published in 2009, but it has some great facts about how to dress your body type and what styles look good, so you can look at what's in right now and compare it to what's out there to see. And of course, whatever you want to do, you don't have to just dress the way that they're telling you to dress, but there's a few pages in there that are really great that talked about when you're wearing a jacket, because blazers are getting more fitted. When you're wearing a blazer, the sleeve, where the sleeve comes on your hand, is a tailoring measurement. And sometimes you might buy a blazer that's too long you look like you're wearing your dad's jacket, right? And we just came out of a trend of oversized blazers. So that's a good book to talk about that, or you could just Google it, or watch a YouTube video that talks about where it should fall, because it shouldn't look like it's dwarfing you when you're thinking about cuffs, and that goes for shirts, but it especially goes for blazers as well. So these are all things that you can have altered, and if you find a good tailor, hang on to them, right? And actually, all of the stories I'm telling you here, I haven't paid more than $30, and honestly, that type of investment, $30 or 30 or 50, contingent on the type of garment, is really not so bad if you intend on keeping that garment and wearing it more than 30 times. Because when it fits you well and you forget that you're wearing it, you put it on and you just feel so comfortable. That's going to be a long-term piece. That is being eco-friendly, because you're going to keep and wear that piece, right? Now, the second thing we're going to talk about is shoes. So shoes is another thing that you can have altered. I mentioned in a video, I forget which one, I had a pair of heels, and admittedly they're the type of boots that are no longer in style. They look like, pumpkin spice girl boots. They're kind of cuff boots. Then they're not the worst, but I'm very heavy heeled and I was wearing down the heels of the boots. So, and unfortunately, I'm not a big shoe person, so I really have to evaluate whether or not, buying a new pair is worth it. But I do also have a pair of knee-high leather boots that the same thing is happening. The heel is getting a little worn down, and you can absolutely find, just like you can find a good tailor for your clothes, you can find a good shoemaker, a good shoesmith, and I'm not, that you can fix the heels of your shoes. And what they can do is they can either take the entire sole off and put a new sole on, or they can just take the heel off and put a new heel on. And believe me, and I've talked before, we buy so many pairs of shoes. I'm not a shoe person, but I do know that other people are, shoe people, and I understand. To each their own. I can't say, each person has their own thing. In a minute, we're going to be talking bags. I have quite a few bags. But shoes are important to people, and especially if you find a good pair. And believe me, I have friends who have leather pairs of shoes that they wear to death. And if they're the classic kind of traditional shoe that when the sole starts to get worn out, and everybody's foot pattern is different, they would need to go to a cobbler. I couldn't think of the name, a cobbler, to fix the sole should it ever need to be repaired. And that is a good way to ensure the longevity of that shoe. And again, we've talked before, there's so many cheaply made shoes. They're just not made the way that they used to be. And, to be able to repair it, now, admittedly, it might be more expensive. It might be more than $30, contingent on the type of sole that you're repairing. But when you think about it, I've always said, the shoes that I wear, like I love Merle shoes. I love Clark's shoes. Those seem to be like the shoes that I can really wear and wear and wear. And I have a pair of boots I've worn to death. If I would really much rather repair the soles of them and in that investment. And all of those shoes were more than $100. So to invest like $30 or $50 to maintain them rather than throw them away, that's a good investment. Now, we're going to bridge a little bit. Speaking of shoes, I wanted to talk a little bit about when I think of shoes, I kind of think of Nordstrom. So the reason that I think of Nordstrom is because one of the other things that we've gone into when you talk about, like for instance, when I was looking up a tailor, when I was looking up a cobbler, they were very hard to find. It seems like few people know how to do this anymore. Few people know how to repair, and it's an artisanship that is not available anymore. And so when you really think about it, you really kind of want to know that people care about the quality of things. And I feel like in this culture, and again, it's nobody's fault, it is what it is, it seems like we buy everything from Amazon, we buy everything from Shemu, which is the most awful place in the world, and we don't care about the quality of it, and they sure as heck don't care about it. They're not going to guarantee what they sell. They're not going to repair it if it breaks, right? But I do notice in the line of shoes, I've made purchases from the department store Nordstrom. Now, I know Nordstrom is the first thing people think is Nordstrom is very expensive. And yes, Nordstrom is on the higher price point, right? Like it's like kind of like a Saks Fifth Avenue. It's a few on the hierarchy of things. It's a few steps above Macy's, but it's not a Bergdorf, a Goodman, a Bergdorf Goodman's. It's not as high scale as that, but it's a nice middle ground. And what I've noticed is I've actually watched videos here on YouTube about the history of Nordstrom, and the founder actually started off selling shoes. And it was really great. I can't find the video. I'll try to find it. But even the founder's grandsons, who are the CEOs of Nordstrom now, they started off in the shoe department. And there was a great quote by one of them that even said that, you know, if you can't run this company unless you have kneeled at someone's feet and helped them pick out a pair of shoes. Right? And I just think that is such a cornerstone of quality. You know, you've got these CEOs who make a lot of money, but yet their grandfather instilled in them how he started. And how he started was, you know, if you remember being a kid and going into the shoe store and having them put that little measuring thing on your foot to see the exact size shoe that you would wear. It's kind of like that. It's that specialty service. And the Nordstrom, I have a Nordstrom near me, and what I like about it is, you know, if you watch my packaging video, with all this fast fashion, with all this being able to order things and have, you know, having carbon, having it shipped to you, and then if you don't like it, you just ship it back, and if you ship it back, it costs more to ship it back, and then if they can't restock it, then it gets destroyed or thrown away. Nordstrom doesn't have that kind of mentality. You can, if I have a problem with a size, I can take it back, and they have a great return policy. And because I'm bringing it into a person, I'm not flying it around the world. They can usually restock it in their store, their brick and mortar store, or worst case scenario, through their own, you know, through their own trucking, you know, transit, their connection, their web of transit, can ship it back to their warehouse that's probably not as far as, you know, overseas, right? So to save that, you know, to give someone my business, to have it be, you know, eliminate carbon, and know that they stand behind what they sell. And I've noticed that the shoe department takes it very seriously. They have very, it's almost like they care about all of their salespeople. They pick their salespeople very carefully. Everyone I've ever dealt with, whatever the department, has been really considerate and you know, approachable, and they'll offer suggestions. But I've noticed it really starts in their shoe department. Everyone I talk to takes it very seriously, and you think, oh, okay, shoes. No, they will kneel at your feet to see if, you know, you kind of feel like Cinderella. Now, what I also like about Nordstrom is that, you know, again, their exchange policy just makes it a lot easier. You feel like you're not contributing to as much carbon. Is that they, in addition, in the vein of shoes, is that they do also have a, especially this time of year, they have a shoes that fits program. And what it is you can do a $10 donation. And when you do a $10 donation, they put that money towards shoes for kids. And, you know, every year I like to do it. I like to do it multiple times. Like this year I bought 3 of those 10. I put $30 towards 3 of those $10 to buy kids shoes. The other thing is, when I looked at the article, they did mention Nike. I don't think they specifically give the kids Nike shoes. It's just, you know, when you look at the fall trends, everyone and their cousin has had a pair of Adidas Sambas, but I've honestly never worn a pair. I still don't have a pair of Adidas Sambas. I'm sure they're pretty comfortable, but the shoes that I have, the sneakers that I wear to death, are Nike running shoes. So when I saw that they partnered with Nike, that gave me peace of mind, because I really wear the heck out of, I've had 2 pairs of Nike running shoes, and I've worn them for at least 10 to 12 years each pair. So to give a pair of those to kids who, you know, and kids run around, they play, you know, to have a good sturdy pair of sneakers, you know, I don't know, again, I don't think they just give out Nikes, but that just gave me peace of mind. And I really like that they care about that, and their brand being based in kind of starting off as a shoe dealer, you know, a shoe, you know, merchant. That just is really cool. The last thing is, in the name of tailoring and finding a good tailor, you know, this kind of bridges back to clothes. Nordstrom will alter clothes for you, you know, and what it is if you are a card holder with them, if you have a Nordstrom card, they have levels, like, you know, there's influencer level, and they put names on it. But even just the base level, you know, I'm not big on the food chain with it, but even the base level, they'll say, okay, each year you can do up to $200 of alterations, and I think they even upgraded it recently where it might be unlimited. But what you do is if you buy the garment from Nordstrom, they will tailor it for you. And what it is you do have to pay for the tailoring. But if you have a Nordstrom's card, you pay for the tailoring, but it goes as a credit that you can use for something else. Like for instance, I had a pair of cargo pants that were the wrong size. I sized down because I wanted it to fit at the waist, and like I mentioned with the inseam, I ended up having to size up to get a different pair, and they did the pants were too long, so they sent it took like 10-15 minutes. They put the little chalk mark to say where to tailor it, and believe it or not, guys, that tailoring cost like $25. It was like $25.44, and because I have a card with them, they actually gave me a credit of $25.44. So the next time I go to buy something from Nordstrom, it will take that money off the price that I'm paying. So and I'm like, wow, that's amazing, because first off, again, like I mentioned, usually base, if you're getting a good deal, it's $30 for alterations. Here it's $25, and it's in essence money that I can use towards the purchase of something else. So the Nordstrom's amazing for that. Plus all these programs, and at any time I have an exchange, like those pants I bought a while ago, and they still had the tags on them, but it was like, for them to have such a good exchange policy and to be in person, I just feel like I'm not contributing to as much carbon, and I'm actually getting garments that I'm going to wear and use, and I'm putting my buying dollar towards something where you don't see that kind of customer service exist anymore. I mean, think of how many stores actually give you that kind of service, and that is also a dying art. You want to find some place that's actually going to stand behind and actually still be there, and I think that's half the reason that Nordstrom has survived this long, is because you see a lot of department stores, they can be cheap, they can be fire sale, marking down prices of everything. If you don't have the service to back that up, I mean, that is something that you pay for, and that's quality that you don't just get anywhere else. So, now, again, I know that any merchant that you go to, they are buying their products from places that are most likely made in China. So they can't always guarantee what the materials are made of, but I just know that if you have a problem with it, they are good about taking it back, even though, if it costs them money to exchange it, that's well worth it. Now, the last thing we're going to talk about is handbags. And handbags is kind of an exciting one. That's one that I'm actually I kind of get into, is that, admittedly, I have quite a few purses, but the funny thing is all the purses I have are most, like 80% of them are vintage, bought pre-owned, very high quality, and they're kind of rare. It's like the style of them you won't really see, and actually you'll see in a minute a few that I've kept, that are coming back into fashion because I've had them since the time they were first fashionable. But to jump into it, we are going to touch a little bit on fashion trends. One thing that, before we jump into purses, some of the colors that you're seeing, again, I mentioned in the fall fashion video here, burgundy or the kind of oxblood color. Like, it's funny, my fall fashion video for last year, I talked about oxblood, about my Anye, my Agner. My handbag from last year is in a really pretty burgundy color. That is totally a 90s, early aughts trend. And I remember it, like, it's funny, I have, I probably should start a Pinterest, because I have a lot of, when back in the day, I used to rip out the pages of magazine, ads that I liked. And burgundy was huge in actually around the late aughts and early 2010s, but it was also very big in the 90s. It's interesting, in the 90s there was a makeup brand called Jane. It's no longer in business, but you can see, and honestly, the bandanas and the square sunglasses, this was really a big 90s. It was kind of around the same time that Delia's was around, but they had a lot of burgundy. It was always burgundy and gray. Now, the other thing that it's funny, I actually saw the magazines have kind of stepped up and actually given this a name, but the nickname that stuck, I think it was from Elle Canada, or it might have been in Europe too. They're calling this Cherry Cola, Cherry Cola, which I think is kind of first off, it's a cool name. It's fitting because it's kind of the maroon burgundies. But what makes me think of this is also a 90s thing. When I was a teenager or early 20s, Maybelline had little, Maybelline was catering to my age group with makeup, and they had something called lip coolers. And it was so cool that it was like little ones, and they had different colors. And it was neat. The lipstick was kind of swirled. It almost looked like a swirled kind of content. And they did actually have a flavor called Cherry Cola that I loved. It not only was a pretty burgundy lipstick, but it was, it tasted like cherry cola, but it was kind of like that bridge. It wasn't your typical lip smacker, lip balm for kiddos. It looked like it was, it was kind of a nice bridge. You weren't using full on lipstick, but you weren't using little lip balm, kitty stuff either. And it kind of hit the sweet spot of my demographic of a tween, or early teenager, not quite adult yet. And you see people talk about this to this day, that people are almost begging people to bring tell Maybelline to bring this back, right? I think this would, I think Gen Alpha would probably appreciate this, but I remember Cherry Cola being that. I do also remember it also being very big in a lot of the fashion around 2009. I'll show you in an upcoming video. I did go to the thrift store and I found a burgundy raincoat jacket from London Fog, and it's so versatile. But you did also see a lot of burgundy. Burgundy and gray was huge in the late 90s, early aughts. But in that vein, one of the other trends with purses in particularly has been suede. So what you're going to be seeing is a lot of suede purses, and just to talk about it a little bit, in the vein of alterations, I always talk about upcycling. So you can absolutely upcycle this. If you have materials, you can, use it. But this is actually a bag that I got at Target, and it was made by Isaac Mizrahi back in his heyday when he was like really like this budding designer. And it's this cute little burgundy bag. And you see on the bottom, you see how it's kind of slouchy, and it's got almost this kind of ribbon kind of pull down. And this guy is a little beat up, but it actually has stood the test of time. I'm going to post a video down below. We had talked before about Cassie Thorpe. She has a great video that talks about these bags. It seems like the bag that has kind of like a divot, she calls it the chop. It's kind of like a little bit of a slouch in the middle, have been very popular. But I mention this because this kind of style, and especially in this color, again, this is the cherry color, and you see I still, and I bought this in 2019. This thing is more than 20 years old, and you can absolutely, I kind of searched YouTube to see if you could still get it. You could get it for $20 on YouTube. You don't have to buy this new. And so suede has been a big deal. Another suede bag that I have that you've probably seen in another video is this one. This is a vintage, not vintage, it's not as old as 30 years, but I think this came out in 2012, but this is a Banana Republic bag, and it's got a nice little magnetic lining, but it is suede. And it's got a great back pocket. I think I showed you this in last year's fall video too, still have it. And so this is also a nice suede purse. So again, if you're interested in something suede, you can absolutely do it secondhand. The last thing that I was going to just show you real quick, and again, I got this at the thrift store, and it has that same line. And I was a little bit on the fence about this, but this is kind of like a suede slouch. And it's got, I love magnets, and this is going to come into play in a minute, is that the magnet closure just makes it so easy, because I don't like it when I have to fight my bag. If there's like a flap that you have to pull up and hold up with your elbow, and we're going to talk about that in a minute. But if you can just open it and then you've got a magnetic closure, I found this bag at the thrift store. It is, when I look at the tag inside, it is a Urban Outfitters. And it is also a suede, but I got this for $7.50. And it's great on the back. It has like a pocket that fits my cell phone perfectly, and I can just wear it and get in and out of it very easily. So these are kind of the trends of what's been coming down the pike. And one of the trends, and this is where it gets into the alteration place, is that a lot of quilted black leather has been popular, and in particularly it's almost kind of like the dupe of the Chanel bag. You know how the Chanel bag is quilted. She has one that's called the Chanel boy bag, and then she has another one that has the double C logos on the top of the flap of the bag. And it seems like everybody, you know, because it's so upscale and so hard to get, it is almost like the Birkin bag in its own right. It has like a status to it, and you see that everyone tries to dupe this, right? Everyone tries to copy this. And I'm going to put a great video down below by first name is Bliss. It's a great channel, but he talks a lot about how kind of towing the line a lot of this copyright has gotten, especially with purses. People can really dupe things pretty easily, and the only thing that you really can't, you know, legally copy is a logo. Logos seem to be the area where you can kind of, as long as you slap your logo on it. And this is kind of why Marc Jacobs has these bags that say the tote bag, the mini bag, because he literally has his logo. Okay, this is mine, you know, just, you know, if you ever saw that Dexter's Laboratory episode where they had the labeler, they were running around the house labeling everything. It kind of feels like that in the fashion world. It's a little bit sad, but it is it is what it is. But I just noticed that particularly in this fall, that everyone has been kind of duping the Chanel bag as well. It's funny, you know, I saw in the vein of quality and standing behind, sorry, just a little tangent here, just to preface this a little, we talk about standing behind your merchandise. For a long time, Coach, the handbag provider Coach, they used to really stand behind their bags. They used to say, hey, okay, if a hardware breaks or something like that, just bring it in to us, we'll fix it. And, and it's funny, it seems like they'd really gotten away from that for a while, and they got a little bit of a bad reputation for a while there when they started down quality. The quality of their bags seemed to start going downhill. Instead of lining leather bags with leather, they were lining it with this like kind of cheap canvas, or they were just using kind of subpar materials. And I can say from firsthand experience, my sister used to love to buy Coach bags, and she had bought one of their really expensive legacy bags, one of the ones that had like the striped silk, and the hardware started to mold. And this is how gross it got around the hardware. And it was kind of brass hardware, but I started to see this little green. And it's funny, I had bought one of the smaller bags of that, and I saw green around it. She took it in, and they said, no, we can't help you. We can't fix that. And she was like, oh my God, and she has a lot of Coach bags. Over the course of 15 years, she had been a very loyal customer, and she had spent a lot of money with them. And she got mad. She was like, okay, you won't stand behind this. All I'm asking for you is to clean this, or to give me hardware that does not have, green, mold around it. And they wouldn't fix it. And I have to admit, I had a bag that had some scratching of the hardware, and I went in, and they were a little 50-50. They said that I could pay to have it repaired. But it was just not the same quality that we had seen before. So honestly, it turned my sister off. She was like, okay, I'm not buying another Coach bag. And now she has gone to Tory Burch. And I see a lot of people going to Marc Jacobs, Tory Burch, what's the other one? Michael Kors. They seem to be the alternates to Coach, that level. But I have to admit, I do still like the style of Coach. They used to be. So I'm going to post another video down below by Cassie Thorpe that talks about this. It seems like Coach is trying to reclaim their reputation. Their fall fashion show was not the worst. They're one of the few bag companies. I mean, they deal primarily in purses, but they still have a presence at Fashion Week with New York. So that's a big deal, right? That you can still have a fashion show even though you're a purse company, and you don't charge as much as, you know, that, you know, this isn't, you know, they actually have a bag that's called, I think it's called the Manhattan or the Brooklyn bag. It's supposed to be comparable to the Rose Margot bag, and the Margot bag is like, you know, it's $3,000 to $5,000 depending on the size. And Coach they've been selling out. They've been pre-ordering this one bag because it's apparently comparable. But if you watch the Cassie Thorpe video, she'll talk about that in detail. It does come in 3 sizes: small, which is really like a normal tote size, medium, and then ludicrously capacious. I mean, the big one's huge, but that one is really like the it bag. I don't know. It looks like a suitcase to me, but that's just me. But in addition to that, Coach has also been imitating the Chanel bag a lot. Tory Burch does have an imitation of the Chanel bag. I think all of them do. They just, like we said, they slap their logo on the top. But Coach had this kind of pretty quilted bag, and I was really interested in it. But the problem is the wristlet one was the one that I was kind of looking at. And to be honest, it was a little bit smaller. You know, all of the variations have the little holes where the chain goes through, but it was a little bit smaller, and it was like $300, and it was a lot of money. And I was thinking, I mean, in the back of my head, I was like, okay, are they going to stand by this if I end up buying it? The other thing I didn't like is that a lot of their tabbies, and again, it's like a Chanel knockoff of their tabby, but there's this little middle, like normally they have a flap and then just the little C, that's the magnetic closure. They seem to have this long little piece in the middle, and not to sound strange, that long little piece in the middle really bugs me. It kind of looks like a middle finger. I'm just going to be honest and say it. That's one of the turning off points. I was like, okay. But what was the selling point is that it is Napa leather. And again, I think a Coach is trying to reclaim their reputation, because they've been slowly, just like all these designer companies, they've been charging the same prices or more, but it didn't seem like they were using real leather. They weren't standing behind their product like we were talking about with all these other companies. So, but I was kind of touching the bag, and it was really nice. And the sales girl was like, hey, you know, oh, that's Napa leather, doesn't it feel nice? But it was still too pricey, and again, that middle piece was bothering me. I don't want to feel like I'm flipping people off as I'm walking down the street, or maybe I'll have a mood like that, but not today. And it's funny, I went to the thrift store, and I think this was the thrift gods or my thrift angels that giving me a little gift. I found when I went in, I found this guy, and it's a Calvin Klein. All right. Now you can judge me a little bit. It does have a little middle piece that does look like the piece, but what it is that is the closure. It's just like a metal piece. And I don't know why I just don't feel like, I just feel like it still looks more linear than the other one, you know, but it has that middle piece. And this was $7.50. And I just really fell in love with it, and I liked the hardware because I like the fact it has a little bit of a leather strap that, you know, the other thing I didn't like is a lot of those chain ones, the chain around here really digs in. You've seen that, you know, even with the plastic chains, but a lot of these, you know, these Chanel knockoff kind of, you know, these Chanel dupe ones, even when they're high priced, they have like the chain with the weave, that kind of digs into my skin. This is a Calvin Klein, and it does look like it's from a while ago. And I know Calvin Klein's an 80s brand. That's the other thing that made me feel really special, is that I'm an 80s girl. I like 80s style stuff. And also the song that was playing when I found this was Madonna's Lucky Star. So I just felt like that was a sign from above that said, here, we're giving you a gift. We'll give you this to you. And the funny thing is I took this home, and believe it or not, it does have the flap to it, but it works really well. The other thing that I like is that it looks like it's like one envelope. The Coach bag looks like, and I've seen this in videos, it looks like it's two kind of, it kind of has this split area. It looks like 2 envelopes sewn together, and that also bugged me. That just looks a little cheesy. This is just one piece. It's not like, and the quilting just looks so pretty. And there's a zipper insert, and it just holds everything nice. And the front pocket holds my cell phone. The other bag, the Coach bag was so narrow, I would have to kind of fight it to put my cell phone in. Now, the funny thing is it felt very soft. It didn't feel like PVC. And guess what, guys? I came home and I even asked my sister, we took turns petting the bag. I was like, does this feel like leather to you? And she's like, you know what? I can't tell. At first she was on the fence. She's like, it feels no, yes, no, yes. And I looked it up on, I did a Google search of image. Guess what, guys? This is lambskin leather. This is lambskin leather. So this is my poor girl's Chanel. It is Calvin Klein. It says Calvin Klein on the it's just material lining, and it says Calvin Klein on the inside. But I really love this thing, and I've been wearing it, and it fit the niche. Now, where it gets into alterations, and I know I've been going on about purses, is that the other bags kind of had the little clip on it, and I was debating whether or not, because it has the little D hooks on it. I was wondering whether or not I could, if I really wanted to, I could try to open up one of those links, and you'll see in a minute, I'm going to talk about jewelry. I was thinking about opening up one of the links and trying to put a hook on it, but after some thought, I was like, you know what? It fits perfectly across my body. If it ain't broke, don't fix it. But I could possibly take this in and have it altered. Now, the reason that I know that I could go in and have this altered if I wanted to is because, which leads me to my purse story, is one of the last purchases. So you see a lot of those black leather bags being trendy. Now, probably a year ago or 2 years ago, and admittedly around my birthday, I kind of, sometimes if I really like a purse, just like my organization video, if a new purse is coming in, I try to let go of an old one, right? Either that, or if I'm really not wearing one, I do try to sell it. That way, I don't just go out and acquire 20 million purses. I mean, a few of the ones you've seen, like you said, I saw them at the thrift store, they were a good deal, and I've actually been using them, or I've had them for 10 years and I still use them. Now, what it was is a couple years ago, admittedly, I was fascinated with the potato dumpling bags, like the real soft, kind of squishy leather ones. And but my only problem with them is that I really didn't like the fact that they didn't have a handle. I've had it happen even recently, and it was actually shortly after I did last year's fashion video, is that the one problem with clutches is because if they don't have a handle, or if they don't have like a chain, and that's, I know crossbodies are on their way out, but the benefit of a crossbody is that they're big enough to hold like a clutch, but you can actually adhere it, you can put it, strap it to your body when you're in motion without having to constantly hold it. And I did have it happen where I accidentally put a clutch down and forgot about it, and then I had to run, to the security station to find my purse, which was a heart attack in the making. So if I did go with the dumpling bag, I really did want it to be, and again, I'm a mid-sized person. All of my purses are either small or medium size. I don't go ludicrously capacious. I really can't do it unless it is a backpack to me. But I can understand if you've got kids, or if you've got, you use it like your work bag where you actually put a laptop in it. I could get it, but I did go with a dupe brand. The other thing is that I liked the dumpling style, but I didn't want it to be PVC. And I know, again, eco girl in a modern world, I didn't want it to be some kind of plastic. If I was going to buy it new, and believe me, I know the pitfalls of leather. Leather is inhumane, and it can be the tanning of it can have toxic. But I knew that going into it. But I did find from a brand called Pop Bay a great dumpling bag. And it's this bag, right? And the great thing is it is leather. It's all leather, and it had a handle, right? And it really is. It's this slouchy medium size. This is not huge. But the problem was when I bought it, and it was about $100, and I got this like 2 years ago. It was about $100, and my only qualm with it, and the handle was great, it's just the top of it had one of those hinged kind of openings, and those are an almighty pain in the butt, guys. I have another vintage purse that's like that, and the purse that I have is great, but the hinge has broken. And and what I don't like about it is, just like I mentioned with the other Coach bag, is that it's inconvenient if you have to put it on your arm. I adhere to the one hand rule. If you cannot get into your bag with one hand, you know, like if you have a coffee, and this is me being basic, if you don't have a pumpkin spice latte in one hand and able to get into your purse with the other, you're not going to end up, my thing is, you're not going to end up wearing that purse because it's a pain, right? Just like you don't wear the clothes that are itchy or pinch or, you know, are bunchy, you're not going to really use the purse that makes you exert a lot of effort. And this bag, believe it or not, had one of those hinges where you needed two hands to open it. It was like this, you know? And, you know, I found myself not really using the bag because it was being a pain. And what I did is I did something impulsive. Again, I have been learning how to sew. I'm not a real good seamstress. And to be honest, when you sew leather on a machine, you need a special kind of foot and you need a special kind of needle because the leather gets very thick. Even if it's a thin leather, even if it's like the suede that we saw there, you're gonna, each time you punch a hole, that hole stays. It's not like fabric where the hole disappears if you take the seams out. With leather, you have to punctuate very carefully and lace it up very carefully. And so what happened was I got impulsive, almost like the purse equivalent of cutting your own bangs. I grabbed a pair of scissors and I cut out the hinge of the leather bag. And because it is a big bag, you know, and again, with all the quilting on it, you don't even really notice that it got cut out because, you know, it's got so many folds. And I thought that I could really fix it. I thought, okay, let me sew in, and I really wanted a magnetic closure, right? But I ended up ripping up the bag, and so what happened is, after I impulsively altered it, I ended up with kind of like a mess, right? I had tried to sew in magnetic closures. It didn't work so well. So I found myself in a position where I needed to find a bagsmith, someone who handles bags. And believe it or not, I lucked out and I found this wonderful person and I looked at the reviews, and they were hard to find. There's this little mom and pop shop, you know, you had to go down the steps, around the corner, over the river and through the woods. And this lady was really sweet. The owner's name was Terry. And I took it in. She's like, oh my goodness, what did you do this bag? And I was like, I got impulsive. She's like, really? You think? And I'm like, yeah. And she goes, well, I really wish you had brought this to me when it was intact. She goes, because what I need to do is I need to take out the insert, the lining. And I could have done this so differently. And I felt, you know, she knew what she was doing, right? And she fixed his shoes too. But she was just so knowledgeable, and I did feel stupid. I should have just brought it to her first, but she was able to fix it, and she only charged me $30, which is nice. Again, if you can get this for $30, that's a deal. But she went in and she added the snaps. You see that? And she did. She was sweet. She was like she put little she did little like a little pull up here just because the outside was bigger than the inside with the way I hacked it up. But guys, this is really, really great. And it's so nice because I can kind of fold it and use it. I can do it as a handheld if I want. But if I can't hold it, it is a shoulder bag. I can put it over my shoulder and just go ahead and carry it like this. And it's all squishy and dumpling-y, and I'm excited. I have to wait until it gets a little cooler out, but it holds a lot of stuff. It doesn't hold a laptop, but it probably would hold, I don't have an iPad, but it would probably hold like a tablet. So I'm excited to use this, and I really lucked out. I found someone who deals with bags. And again, that's a lost artisanship. She fixed up my bags so nicely, and she did it at such a good price. And it was funny when I first visited, there was a line. There were people coming in, so she's well known, right? Maybe it is because she charges honest prices, but she also did a fantastic job. I don't think anybody could have done any better. And it's funny, I did shop around a little bit, and you know, I'd gone to Cobblers, you know, because sometimes people who fix shoes can fix bags too, but most of them just looked at it and said, no, I don't know what you did there, but and Terry even said it too. She goes, okay, put your scissors down. And I'm like, okay, put my scissors down. I'm not going to hack up any more bags. If I have a real problem with that other hinged bag, I'll probably take it to her first and see what she can do to fix it. Maybe she can do the same thing that she did to this one to that one. So, but that's a future project. I'm not trying to drop millions of dollars on every single purse I own, but But that was the alteration that I did for bags, and it does exist. And the other thing I was thinking of is, you know, when I went to the thrift store for the quilted bag, I was looking at it like, hey, maybe I can, you know, if something has like a clip chain strap to it, maybe I can, you know, if it's not the right length, maybe you can take out the number of links. And so you can look at a regular bag that you have and try to alter it, right? Or, you know, do your best. Or if you have some leftover leather material, maybe you have one piece article of clothing that's made out of leather that you upcycle and turn into something else. And again, you know, if you have that expertise, or if you have someone who knows how to do this would be something interesting to learn. Because again, you know, repair, we talk about the R in, you know, reuse, recycle, repair, and that is what alterations do. Now, the last thing I'm going to talk about, and then we're going to wrap up, is we're going to talk about jewelry. I mentioned in the fall fashion video that monograms is a huge thing, right? And that is coming back. I've seen a lot of the bubble, like there was a necklace at Anthropology which was like a bubble letter necklace, and I thought it was really neat, but it was $48, and I kept looking at the reviews, and the reviews were talking about how the metal would get discolored, or that the gold plating would start to flake off, or that it turns someone's neck green. And you know, on this channel we talk about that all the time. A lot of jewelry is imported from overseas. We're not testing it to see if it has any toxic chemicals, and there's a lot of nasty stuff there. It can have lead on it, it can have cadmium, and all of that can soak into your skin. Now, and what I wanted to do is I didn't want to drop $50 on something that might not be a quality piece of jewelry. So what I did is I actually have, if you watch my previous channel on YouTube, you'll know why I have a charm bowl, but I have a bowl that is full of charms. And basically these are just little knickknacks. I don't like to throw anything away. So I kind of keep everything, and it's, you know, it's leftover things. Sometimes I find it, you know, sometimes it might be little knickknacks that my nieces had when they were little, but little charms or little just pieces that I don't use anymore, I put into a charm bowl. And not to sound funny, I pull out charms each day, and they're just kind of like, I'm kind of a visual person. It kind of gives me my energy for the day, and I can show you a picture. These are the charms that I pulled for today. But I know for a fact that in my charm bowl, and it's quite extensive, it's a little, you know, crock of them, is that I had pieces of jewelry from the past, like actually from 2009 when monograms were huge. I knew for a fact that I had 3 pendants that were S pendants for my name, and that I had thrown in the charm bowl when I just didn't use them anymore. So I emptied out my charm bowl, and I went ahead and I picked out the 3 S emblems, and I was really looking for discoloration, right? One of the S's I know for a fact was silver, but I think it was silver plated, and it was supposed to be, it was also a dupe. It was a dupe of a Tiffany initial, but I could tell when I pulled it out, it had black areas on it. And I know that it's been, you know, it's been knocked around in the bowl, but I think it was silver plated. I don't think it was real Tiffany. It was, and the price I paid for it was probably like $20 way back in the day, and it just looked discolored. So I was like, okay, that's probably not a good one. There was also another really cheap little S1 that definitely had flaking on it. So I was like, okay, I'm not gonna put that on a necklace. The last one was a little rhinestone one that looked like a typewriter S. And that one is the one I have on now. And it was really great because I love typewriter stuff because I'm a writer, right? I'm a journalist. And what I thought was neat is that this I bought back in like 2009, 2010. And guys, I saw the little stamp. I don't have a picture of it, but there was a little stamp on the back that said silver. And looking at it, you would think that it was a cheap little piece, but it stayed silver. Like there was no tarnishing. And I decided, okay, why don't I just use this S? I don't need to buy a new S. I've got the charm, right? And, you know, in my jewelry box, I keep all of the chains. You know, sometimes you buy a chain of a necklace and it is silver, you know, or if it's a good quality chain, you don't need to throw it away, you know. So I also do that. I just keep a little plastic baggie full of the chains that are not in use. And I pulled it out. And what it was is the chain fit the charm, like it was small enough to loop through the S, but the problem is it was too long. And what I did is I do actually have some jewelry making equipment. And honestly, jewelry making equipment can be anything. You might have these tools laying around the house, but it was just a small piece of pliers, a little pair of tweezers. And if you put some reading glasses on, you can see up close as you're doing it. I just clipped the length of the chain, and there's something called a jump hoop. It's just a little circle with a break in it. And you just use the pliers to open it up a little bit, loop it around, loop it around the chain, push it back. And I went ahead and I created my own monogram. And you see I've got it on, I'm kind of layering it today. I've got my little bear for strength, and I've got my little typed S. But I did that. So, I was like, wow, okay, I'm having a productive week. I had my dress altered. I got to go pick that up next week. I had my bag fixed, which is great. That's kind of like a little present to myself. I upcycled, or I reused a monogram. And I found some really cute bags that I was able to purchase secondhand that are all the same trends that you're seeing. And I got to pull out a bag that, that burgundy bag I'm going to be able to use. So again, little alterations, whether you do it yourself or you find an expert, and let me just tell you, if you find an expert, pick their brain, ask them how they do what they do. Maybe if this is something you're interested in, maybe you can become an apprentice. You can learn, how to do this, because I feel like the world is lacking artisans, and these are dying art. Coach started as a little bag company in New York, mom and pop. They made bags in their own office, and it was affordable to it was mid-priced. It was affordable luxury, right? And that's where we really need to get back to, is quality. And quality equals eco-friendliness, because when you use something over and over again, that's how you stay green. Well, I really hope that you enjoyed this video. I know I went on a little bit about a lot of different topics. I may post a video just about handbags or accessories, because you can tell I'm a fanatic about that. But I hope this was helpful, and definitely, if you like what you see here on my channel, I would be very honored if you would like, comment, and subscribe. And I'll see you in the next video. Bye.